Motivation cannot be money. Money is a byproduct. Be able to have an impact, be it towards the company, be it towards the employees, be it towards your customers. If you're not having that impact, money is never going to come. We went public at a stock price of 383. In the first 3 months, went up to 946. From a 2,500 crore market cap, we went up to 6,200 crores. For a 600 crore IPO, there was 66,000 crores in our bank account for 3 days. I feel proud about is that over 100 people became crore-patis in the company.
Nice. It's a services company.
Yeah.
And services companies take time to scale.
Yeah.
How did you scale it so fast?
When I started, we were about a $6 million revenue business. This was 2007, we were about 72 million, right, at that stage, and we were number 4 on the design giants. I went to my CEO and I said, we are going to see a downturn, right? I can see it, talking to the customers, and let's sell the business.
Hi guys, how's everybody doing? All right, this is we meet again. How was the weekend? Good. All right. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Amit. Amit has been a dear friend for a long time. We meet event to event. We've met in Bangalore, we've met in Agra, we've met in all over the world, but this is the first time we're meeting on campus. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, brother.
Over the time that I've known you, you've taken your company public. And we'll start with this one question, which I've always wondered. How has your life changed since going public? And then we'll start from the beginning after this. Yeah.
So, Pratham, I think, 2023 is when we decided to go public. And when I made the idea to my investors, they said, it's not going to happen, right? Because nobody in the world had been able to take a company successfully in the co-working space public.
Yeah.
Yeah. And first question always was, WeWork failed with billions of dollars. How will you succeed, right? And that too from India. And, we decided against all odds to go at it. We were 108 times oversubscribed. For a 600 crore IPO, there was 66,000 crores in our bank account for 3 days. The biggest, thing which I think I feel proud about is that over 100 people became crore-patis in the company.
Nice.
They got 1x to 50x of their salary. So life didn't change much because we were a fully governed business, right? I mean, we had Peak 15 and Chris Capital as our investors. And so they, from a governance standpoint, from a reportability standpoint, accountability, all that was already in place, right? I mean, but I think the biggest challenge or change that happened was, somebody who's making, let's say, 30-40 lakh rupees has 5 crores in his bank account. How do you motivate the guy to come back to work? And that's been the biggest change. And hence what we've done is we have now started quite a few new I would say, parallel kind of businesses. Some of them are in the public domain already. Some of them are not. Like food and beverage became a big deal for us.
Really? Interesting. Within your spaces?
Within our spaces. So today you talk about, all these quick commerce companies. I have 300 stores and, I have 300 square feet of those stores and hence I should be billions of dollars. I have 250 stores, right? And we have close to 30,000 in each of these locations, right? So the amount of, and there are 1 lakh people that walk into our centers every day. So with that ability and people's mind share, now we are looking at every single element that any workplace user requires, we should be able to deliver, right? So we're tied up with eco-mobility for transportation. F&B will do it on our own. So we're creating these avenues because I needed to motivate my leaders to come back, right? And so that's the biggest change that's happened.
All right. So I'm sure all of the students have already done enough research on you. And you'll see a lot of LinkedIn requests come in. Guys, we'll make sure of that. But, I'll make a quick introduction. So you've had a very, very interesting journey. You were an architect. You still are.
I am.
You still are an architect. But an architect who's transitioned into becoming a businessman. That also with a public company. I don't see too many examples of that out there. You first started doing design services and doing design and build services for clients. Then transitioned into building Awfis, which now has over 250 centers.
Yeah.
And almost 180,000 people subscribed to your offices. That is such amazing skill, and you have done this in less than 10 years, I believe, right? You said 10
10
years is
years
this year.
will be this month.
Would be
yeah.
this month. And so there is so much to unpack here as to how an architect from SPA Delhi, who got into design and build services, ended up building a co-working empire, literally. But I want to start right at the beginning. Were you always interested in real estate design, या architecture में ऐसे ही बस घुस गए?
So, Pratham, I came from a family of engineers, and we, all of us, like in at least in my age group at that point, would give all these, entrance exams, right? And so I got through no engineering college. The only
So you
college
took JE.
I took JE. I got through no engineering college. In fact, I got invited to IIT Mumbai, a few years back, and my statement there was, I couldn't ever get into IIT, but this was my way to come in, right? So I probably couldn't get into Masters Union, but this was my way to come to Masters Union, right? So I got into architecture, and I had no only inclination was that you needed a government college, right? I mean, because the fees was low, and coming from a middle class background, you couldn't afford it, right? And hence that was the only criteria. And got into a great college.
Yeah,
School of
SPA is
Fine
like number
Architecture,
one.
one of the best in the country. And even there at SPA, I think I very quickly figured out that the right brain or the aesthetic part of the business was not my cup of tea, right? I would not be able, I mean, even today, I can't design my own room, for example, right? And but I made up for it by having the left brain a little bit more. And so I think that's how it started.
SPA का तो अपना टेस्ट होता है ना एंट्रेंस के लिए?
SPA का अपना टेस्ट
अपना तो आपने बोला टेस्ट भी
How?
दिया.
Although I don't know. I don't know how I cracked it, but I did, right? So, but anyway, so I think SPA was a great place because I think what it teaches you, what design school or architecture school teaches you is problem solving skills. So you can problem solve anything, and to that end, you got a very different exposure. Great faculty. I'm one of the best in the country. And after that, natural progression was to go into an architecture program, right? So, but I changed from when I went to Kansas State, it was an environment and behavior studies program. To give you an example, my thesis was on how do you kind of using a software able to design spaces which are basically habitable, right? And the biggest challenge that you would face in the country, in the environment, was you could get these dark spots, right? I mean, if you are ever in let's say in Gurgaon, right? You want to make sure that there are as limited dark spots as possible because they become unsafe zones, right? So we designed that software. Everybody used to do it for exterior. I was the first guy in the world to do it for interior. And we would be able to, so for example, we would apply the software here and you would be able to assess where would people congregate or which would be your, dead spaces and so on. So I think that was a natural progression. And then went to Cornell for a master's in real estate, which was a combined program between city and regional planning, design environmental analysis, and, the Johnson School. And so that was a great program there. So that's how I transitioned to
I saw on your LinkedIn that you didn't start with your real estate business until a few years after, right? You're doing something in Bank of America. What was that?
So, Pratham, when I graduated, and I think this would be interesting for students here, we used to have a big venture fund in Cornell, right? It used to have typically $2 to $5 million. And this was as part of their Johnson School program, and two business plans would get funded every year. We were one of them.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
So we had built an app for a museum. If you go to any of these museums, right, they typically give you this, sort of clumsy, headphones, and there's no. So we built this app which basically you would walk, and through RFID you would go and stand in front of a painting or a sculpture and give you all the feedback. And this was built on the iPack, which is the prior version of the smartphone and BlackBerry and everybody was an iPack, right? So we got funded, went and met the iPack CEO, went and met the MoMA director, and that's the time 2001 when the dot-com bust happened. And You had no funding available. So anyway, being a immigrant of in US, you had to get a H-1B visa. So you had to have somebody sponsor. So then actually Rhythm started my journey in a company called HOK. HOK is the world's largest design and planning firm.
HOK.
HOK, Helmut Obata Kussbaum. And every stadium, every airport that you see in the world has,
Somewhere or the other been touched.
them, right? But I was part of their advanced strategies group, and the advanced strategies group was a group of 5 people. The only requirement, you had to be from an Ivy League. Otherwise, you would not be able to, be part of it. Only 5 people. And we used to advise people on what you hear today about, these hybrid working, telecommuting. My first role was with Goldman Sachs as a consultant, and we saved Goldman Sachs $2 billion, and it got published in Wall Street Journal the first 3 months into this entity. So I didn't start with design. It was all real estate planning, workplace strategy, all of this. Then joined a company called Nelson, which was a small mom and pop shop. About roughly at that point there were 50 people.
This is in the US or
in the US?
Okay.
It was literally a mom and pop shop. The dad had started, the son had become the CEO, and I was like the 49th employee. And and I was coming from a company which had like 3,000 people, right? And anyway, so joined that company, took it to one of the top 5 firms in the world in terms of design consulting. And so even though it was a design firm, I used to do the strategic IT, workplace strategy, all of that consulting.
So this was in the US?
In the US.
Consulting US clients on
US
their
clients.
workplace strategy.
Yeah.
Office kahan banana hai, kaise banana hai,
Correct.
kis tarike ka.
From the start till the complete design part.
What kind of clients were these?
So you can name any client, it would be our client. I mean, Bank of America, AT&T, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all the Fortune 100 companies, right? And the Bank of America.
Sorry, what is workplace consulting? Thoda sa wo mujhe batao.
So see, again, and this is now come to India, but earlier, this did not exist, right? In India, people would laugh at it, right? So I'll give you an example. We did the Bharti Airtel headquarters, which is the colorful building, right? First time I came back to India, I met Mr. Mittal and I told him, what is your strategy for the building? I said, what strategy? I'll make a design and we'll go forward. I said, well, you're bringing 23 offices from all of NCR together. Have you asked your employees that what do they need, right? How do they work, right? I mean, what is your culture, etc., etc. Yeah,
what are these things?
What are these things, right? So anyway, we said, okay, let me do this, right? Let me pull this together for you, and you will see the difference. So we met with all of their leaders. We did focus groups with their employees. We did survey with all of their employees. We did observation mapping. How do people really work, right? I mean, and one of the things which came out, right? At that point, people would put a 4x2 desk, right? That was the typical desk that people, and you have it here as well, right? But what came about was that Airtel was a growing firm at that point, and they were just about touching 100 million subscribers. This was in 2008. And they would have a lot of quick meetings at the workstation, right? And hence we designed the workstation, which was a 6x6 and had a pedestal with a, seating on it. Like, you would not be able to assess this if you did not understand how Airtel worked, right? So this was around the whole workplace.
So you understood the employee behavior and then designed the building around that.
That is correct.
Kabhi socha nahi humne,
that is correct. That is correct. So
kursi lagao, table lagao, niche cabinet lagao, khatam.
Correct. And that's why, today, we are probably one of the very few firms in India that can do this, right? And we have done this with Allstate, Qualcomm, Microsoft, all of them. We have built this strategy for them. Accenture, for example, when they're going to tier 2 cities, we said your tier 1 locations are going to look different than tier 2, right? And they understood it. So we did this with them. We've done this with Teleperformance. So I don't do it myself anymore, but I think that gives us a very deep understanding into the psyche of, the user. And it gets applied even today when we do our co-working centers, right? Because we are at version 6 of our design. We are a 10-year-old company. But if you look at our designs, they constantly evolve. And they constantly evolve because my client is changing. When we started, we were startups, was the main focus. SMEs was the main focus, right? Slowly and over post-COVID, 70% of the customers today are enterprise customers, right? So very different behavior. So the kind of look, feel, how they
Understood.
want is.
So this Nelson company, so it was a mom and pop store. You were the 49th employee. You led their growth. Then what happened?
So this was 2007, and we were doing about when I started, we were about a $6 million revenue business. This was 2007. We were about 72 million, right, at that stage, and we were number 4 on the design giants list. I went to my CEO and I said, we are going to see a downturn, right? I can see it talking to the customers, and let's sell the business. And he said, you've lost your money. And so I said, now, and I knew we are going to get into real trouble, right? I saw literally predicted 2008 before 2008, right? So I knew that it was his name on the board, right? So I would be the one who will get blamed, right? For sure. So I went to him, and in November 2007, I said, I'll go back to India and I'll take the brand to India. And because I knew if I stuck around there, I would be blamed for everything.
Blame for the downturn.
Because, so anyway, so I came to India and we brought that brand to India in 2008. And this was November. And February 2008, I figured out my wife's pregnant. So she stayed there, and I had obviously made the plunge here. So then we started that journey here. And then 2000.
So before we go there, you said you took the company from 6 million to 70 million. It's a services company.
Yeah.
And services companies take time to scale.
Yeah.
How did you scale it so fast? What was the...
So, 2 areas. So, the company was an interior design business, right? And that's what they used to do. That's what the father has started the business as. And so, when I joined them, I came from that strategic consulting mindset, right? We knew IT services, and IT services in real estate are when you manage basically the portfolio on a platform, right? And it's called computer-aided facility management, right? I mean, probably now exists in India. At that point, nobody had probably heard of it. So I took these 2 businesses, which I understood really well. And then we took a third piece, which was workplace services. So we would second employees into the business to run their interior design real estate pieces, right? So that's how the Bank of America piece was. We had a team of 20 people that was seconded there inside.
Got it.
And many, many others. So we scaled that piece up, and then we did 14 M&As over that 5-year period.
And how old are you at this time?
I am 50.
No. At that time, sorry. Yeah.
At that time, I just joined them. I must be 28.
28, right? So at 28, you're essentially diversifying, like anything. You're adding new businesses. You're doing M&A.
I was at 29. I was the youngest COO in the business, in the overall
In a family, operated business.
Yeah.
So were you more important than the son?
Not really, because the father had kind of taken a back seat and the son was running it. So the son and I got along very well. He was probably 4 or 5 years older than me. So he was in mid-30s, early 30s.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so look at, this is such a great point, right? At 28, you can have such a huge impact. A lot of students come to me and say, especially at 25, 26, 27, that, I'm joining a new company. How do I negotiate for more salary? And I said, boss, if you do a good job there, right, you can ask for anything and they'll have to give you. So don't negotiate today, negotiate once you've proven. And I mean, once you are the person who's taking the company 10x, you can ask for...
I mean, it's, my fundamental advice to everybody is, money is a byproduct, right? I mean, you have to, be able to have an impact, be it towards the company, be it towards the employees, be it towards your customers. If you're not having that impact, money is never going to come, right? And, it's a byproduct. And if you do all of those things right, if customers love you, if your employees love you, if your management loves you, money is irrelevant. I mean, they'll pay you anything, right? But you have to demonstrate and deliver.
Deliver first, then expect.
Yeah.
Understood. So then when you brought this company to India, then you started scaling it in India. Now you had a complete autonomy here, do whatever.
So very interesting. So 2008, it was a wholly owned subsidiary, right? I was still an employee. I had some stake in the India entity, but it was a wholly owned subsidiary. 2008, when I came here, we were 600 people. And in less than a year, the US company had fired 400 plus people. So it was almost at the brink of bankruptcy. We were making more money in India than all of US put together, right? And we made the company survive, right? And I remember in December of 2009, I went to the US and, basically we were being asked to take salary cuts in India and we were making tons of money in India. I was like, that's not going to happen. I mean, I made the company, I made it survive. The employees, why should they take a salary cut? So I went in 2009 and met the CEO, and he would not even have the courtesy to meet me at an office. He met me at the airport, right? And I told him I want to buy the company. And he said no. I came back anyway, we negotiated and so on. Ultimately bought the company in 2010. And that's how I became a first generation entrepreneur.
And this time you are 34, 35.
At that time this was 2000, 34, around 34.
So at 34, you bought the company from the promoter.
Yeah, I bought the company from the promoter, sold everything, all bank accounts put together. I had less than 5 lakhs in my bank account. And that's the big bet that one took. After that, it was all good. Yeah.
And so whatever money you had, you just put into...
Yeah, I put in everything. Everything into it.
You had that much confidence that the business was doing well.
Yeah, business was doing well. I mean, and I knew always...
What was the transaction size, if you don't mind me asking?
So all put together, it was about $1 million, which included my bonus and foregoing my shareholding, etc., all that, wrapping it up. So about $1 million. Hard cash was about 700,000.
Wow. Almost 5-6 crore rupees.
Which was big.
Huge, yeah, of course. It's
at that point, the dollar was 40, so 3.5 crore.
हमारे mind में 80 चलता है अब Very got it. So then you thought कि अब diversify करते हैं into co-working. Where did that? How did that happen?
So till 2015, we were doing this, right? Yeah. I mean, design and build. Life was good. Customers were there, etc. We did have a strategic investor that had come in 2013 into that business also. So it was all good. And, then the challenge with the design and build space is that there is no barrier to entry, right? I mean, you graduate out of college and literally you can start your business tomorrow.
Interior design to sabhi karte hain.
Correct, right? And so scaling up in a business where there is very little barrier to entry, people don't value. So if I asked you, any interior design company in India, do you know any names, right? And most of the people who are not in the business will never know, right? And if I asked you the same thing about co-working, right? You yourself will know probably 4 or 5 names in the country, right? So it was very important, and this was at the inflection point of India, right? 2016 January, Prime Minister Modi had done a Startup India event, right? So before that, it was uncool to be an entrepreneur, right? And 2015, what I figured out was that India required something which was very unique, right? It did not require a global guy to tell what India required, and India was very different, right? If you went into a developed country like US or Singapore, you have a great building, right? Like a building like this. You would have a great finish quality. You just need a designer. The contractor also the building provides you, right? And so it's very easy to kind of create a workspace. But if you even if you've done your home renovation, right? You know how hard it is, right? You first have to find a designer, then a contractor, then if it's an office, then you have to manage it, maintain it, etc., etc. It's very difficult, right? So we said, how do you kind of solve for this, right? And if you were to solve for it, we always believe that the demand is never in a single individual's control, right? I don't control the macroeconomics. Today, tariff wars are happening. Stock market is down. People will delay their decision of taking space. So I don't control demand. What I do control is supply. So the idea was that if you want to be the HDFC of co-working, right? Your 2 things are very important. One is the network. So if you do not have an office in, Udyog Vihar, Pratham, who requires 1 seat, I will lose him as a customer. I might have 10 other locations, right? But because Pratham wants to be in Udyog Vihar, I have to be in Udyog Vihar. Hence the 250 location idea. So the network becomes the one very, very important factor because you have to service every type of demand, 1 seat to 1,000 seats, right? Second, if you want to be the HDFC co-working, your cost of supply has to be the lowest. So how do you reduce the cost of supply? Out of the 850 million square feet, almost about 76% real estate is owned by non-institutional landlords. So not like a Brookfield or a DLF, right? It is owned by, let's say Pratham in his individual capacity, Amit in his individual capacity, wealth managers or mid-tier developers.
जिनको hard ROI, IRR नहीं चाहिए. हाँ.
Correct. मतलब खरीदा हुआ है over number of years, right? जब 1 लाख रुपए
cost of capital कम है.
एकड़ होता था उद्योग में यार में तब खरीदा था, right? So we said this is a fragmented lot, and there is in the best and the worst market times in India, 5 to 25% occupancy vacancy exists, right? Which means that this fragmented real estate will always be available in some capacity or the other. So we said, why don't we partner with the landlords? This business has been unsuccessful in the world because of one single reason: asset liability mismatch. I'm sure you guys will understand this, that if you are taking a space for 9 to 15 years and your clients are coming for, let's say, 1 year or 2 year, you are sitting on that mismatch, right? And unlike, let's say, a DLF, which gives it to you for 5 years, 6 year lock-ins, our customers come in for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, right? So I will always carry that mismatch. So how do you diversify that mismatch? And hence we came up with this model called managed aggregation, right? And the managed aggregation model was that the landlord partner, you please put the majority of the new capital, 80 to 90% into the asset, right? Which is the interior fit outs. We will essentially guarantee you demand, and we will bring demand faster than anybody else in the market. And hence your asset, which has been lying vacant, pays property tax and common area maintenance, will get filled up, and essentially we will do a profit share. And oh, by the way, I also need a minimum guarantee free period, 5 to 13 months, right? Because I need to build that occupancy, because my customers are any location would have 500, 600 seats, could be 10 to 25 different companies across those seats, right? So I need that time.
So you can imagine. So 3 चीजें different हो गई. एक तो मैं खुद कैपेक्स नहीं करूंगा, लैंडलॉर्ड कैपेक्स करके देगा, तो उससे मेरा एसेट वाला पार्ट ठीक हो गया काफी हद तक. मैं 3 से 5 महीने तक कुछ पेमेंट नहीं करूंगा, क्योंकि तब तक मेरे को एड कैपेसिटी पहुंचने में टाइम लगेगा. और तीसरी चीज क्या थी? सॉरी,
तीसरी चीज थी कि मैं मिनिमम गारंटी दूंगा जो 50% ऑफ द मार्केट रेंटल होगी.
जो आपको रेंट मिलता है उसका 50% तो आपको गारंटीड है.
करेक्ट.
और उसके ऊपर प्रॉफिट शेयर,
वो भी 5 से 13 महीने बाद.
वो भी 5 से 13 महीने बाद, पर प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग फिर भी.
प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग तो जिस दिन से पैसे कमाऊंगा उस दिन से दूंगा, राइट? So you can imagine sitting in front of a landlord, asking him to put 5 to 7 crores behind you. Trust me, when I make money, you will make money, right? Not a revenue share. It's unlike a revenue share. Revenue share, there is no jig, right? If the saman bik raha hai, right? Profit, right? And to do it at a scale, I mean, we today out of the 250, almost 190 centers are in this format across 19 cities and over 100 localities.
लैंडलॉर्ड्स मान कैसे गए? मैं लेके जाऊं किसी के पास तो कोई नहीं बोलेगा, तो निकल यहाँ से.
So, Pratham, see, you have to understand the psyche of the landlord, right? I mean, the psyche of the landlord is that technically speaking, he's not making anything. It's an empty asset.
उसका बैठना, उसका जो अल्टरनेटिव है वो है ही नहीं कुछ.
So जैसे I'll tell you what the landlords do, right? Developers, right? When they build the asset for first time, they typically sell floors. DLF doesn't do, but other landlords do, right? They sell 1 or 2 or 3 floors, right? Day one, they will help you get a client. But now 5 years have passed. The developer has sold and gone away, right? Now this asset is lying empty. Now, the large IPCs, right, the property consultants like CBR, JLL, they are more interested in working with large occupiers, right? They're not interested with one floor,
Correct.
Amit owning one floor, because he will only do one transaction every 5 years, right? So we became their extended arm, right? And initial days, I would go, my deputy CEO would go, my head of real estate would go, we will pick up our bags and we would go sit in front of landlords, and most landlords would tell us to leave, right?
Obviously.
It's like, what? But there were a few landlords which said, okay, fine, we'll take a chance with you. When COVID hit, we were about 50 odd locations, out of which only 16 were in this format, right? The remaining were all straight lease centers, right? We would pay the typical rent and so on. And at that stage, the only biggest I think I would say as an entrepreneur, what I am able to do, I'm able to look 12 months in advance and pull it back to today, right? I mean, and we have a
Sorry, समझाओ इस बात को.
so I can tell you what will happen in 12 months and do it today. Right? So, and I'll give you a specific example, right? We were 50 locations. This is middle of COVID. It was September of 2020. Our revenue had gone from 20 crore monthly to 9 crore monthly, from 2 crore profit to a minus 3 crore burn. And I went to my team and I said, यार ऐसा है कि अभी 50 location है. I need 100 locations in the next 1 year, right? So we used to add 5 to 6 locations every year. We needed to add 5 to 6 locations every month.
In the middle of COVID.
In the middle of COVID. And they said, you lost it, boss. Something wrong. Something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. And that bet completely transformed the business. And hence we today are.
But itna courage kaise aaya? Nobody knew when COVID is going to end.
See, customer will always tell you what it is. We saw customer behavior changing, right? Large corporates starting approaching us. I mean, I got a call from, one of the largest occupiers in the country. And he said, yeah, we want to explore this. And when I got that call, when the bell rang, I said, boss, if these guys start coming into co-working flex office, then the world will change, right? So you have to be there, and so at that point,
you wanted to create that supply network. You're like, abhi sab chhod rahe hain, abhi saste mein mil jayega.
And the partnerships that we curated, Prestige, which was one of the largest developers in the country, today we are the single largest tenant for Prestige. Over 1 million square feet with Prestige we have. That partnership started in Jan of 21. I mean, wearing a mask, I went and met.
When they were probably in a tough time.
Yeah. And Jaggi was, in fact, a very dear friend of mine. He was the CEO, prior to that, CEO for WeWork India, right? So he and I were competitors. And he called me, he said, yeah, not one single inch is moving in terms of real estate. What can we do? And he said, yeah, this is a building in Hyderabad, in an area which is very weak. I said, fine. You are giving me one weak spot, so give me some bright spot also. So he gave me, one
on profit share.
That model.
Otherwise, maybe that model wouldn't have happened.
Wouldn't have gone off, right? With a developer like Prestige, right?
Of course, yeah.
And he took a bet on us. We took a bet on him, and partnership has thrived.
Do you have to pay deposits?
We had to pay deposits. So one thing which we always, which we are very proud of, is that we have never defaulted on a single payment of our landlords.
Because you had capital at that time.
So this is a very interesting time, right? I mean, so September of, so we had raised initially capital in 2017 from erstwhile Sequoia, now Peak 15, at a very solid valuation, right? I mean, we had 1.8 crore monthly revenue, no profits, no visibility of profits, and we had a 400 crore valuation. I was like, wow, man, this business sounds cool, right? So, and then 2019, June of 2019, Chris Capital came in, right? And they put in the first check of about 90 odd crores at about 800 odd crore valuation, roughly. And September of 2019, the global giant tanked. Their $46 billion IPO went away. All of this in June of 22, we had almost no money, right, left, because we went running, with the expansion, and we had almost no money. And for me, the time to quit the business is when, you essentially can't make salaries for your employees, right? I mean, and then we were at that stage in June of 22. Because we ran hard, and, industry had gotten a lot of bad press because, WeWork had gone bankrupt, etc. Nobody in the world was making any money in it. India, there were a lot of competition, hyper competition.
People had written out co-working completely.
Yeah, completely finished.
Your asset liability mismatch, ho nahi sakta.
Yeah. And nobody would put money, and I was
landlords would not be giving spaces. I remember, like
co-working ko nahi dete the.
Koi bhi co-working space nahi hai, as if like that's a badge of honor.
They're very proud of the fact, and which is fine. I mean, which is how it is. And I remember, we were on a video conference, right? And we were desperately trying to raise money. No banker would take our mandate only, right? So I got on this call with, a very prolific public market investor, Ashish Kacholia. I don't know if anybody of you heard of him. And he was on a VC with me. And he, in 30 minutes, the conference is over. And I'm like, boss, you to dead. I mean, this was my last hope, right? And 30 minutes later, the banker calls. He says, Kachulia Saab will put 50 crores. I said, boss, I mean, when we raised money with Chris Capital and Sequoia, we had to go meet them 20 times, explain the model. Then this guy is putting 50 crores. I mean, like, okay. So when I met, finally after COVID kind of subsided, I met him face to face. And I was like, Kachulia Saab, why, how did you put... we look at two things. One, story, and second, storyteller. Dono mein 10 on 10. So that's how we got saved. And then after that, I mean,
So from near death in 22 to IPO in 24.
24.
2 saal mein, the turnaround, this must have been a great journey, these 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, great journey in the sense, it was a tough journey because you had to keep the business running while you are, basically trying to, take the company public. And that too, in an industry which is written off, that too, where nobody else, there's no playbook, right? It's not that I can copy. There's no valuation, right, in the market because the only big guy has gone bankrupt, so there's no valuation. And we went public at a stock price of 383, opened at 413. In the first 3 months, went up to 946. From a 2,500 crore market cap, we went up to 6,200 crores. We used to trade at 12x of 1 year forward EBITDA. The industry trades at 25x of 2 year forward. So, the ability to change, I mean,
The industry
altogether was, and that too out of India. I mean, very, very proud of the fact.
And I think you also opened the gates for everybody else to IPO.
Yeah, but nobody else was then able to do it as yet.
Acha, abhi tak hua nahi koi? Anyway, SmartWorks, etc.
Everybody is in the line.
In the line, but at least Rasta khul gaya. And I think in the world, I mean, US also,
Nobody has been able to.
nobody has been able to do it.
US, Asia, nobody has been able to do it.
So why do you think that was the case? Like, what are the core values that you have that maybe they lacked? Ki aap yahan par ho aur wo wahan par hai.
Pratham, the only thing that matters in any market, right, private or public, is contribution margin.
Bala, thoda explain karo. Ye naye bacche hain hamare, inko abhi CM nahi.
Yeah. So what is the contribution margin? You have your revenue and you have your cost. What's left at a unit level is called a contribution margin, right? For a let's say a Zepto cafe, it would be essentially their revenue minus their cost.
Cost of the product.
Cost of goods.
Minus marketing.
Minus whatever, all the costs, direct, indirect, and what's left at that unit level is your margin.
Not including salaries.
Not including salary. Corporate salary at all. If you can create a high-performing contribution margin business, then you will make money, which will flow into your EBITDA, right? Earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation, and will flow into your profit before tax and after tax. It's a simple logic. So, if unit level pe you can solve a problem, then you can build a business, right? So, सबसे important चीज़ है contribution margin, which people tend to ignore. Second, and the most important thing is, how do you diversify your risk? You have to understand the industry and figure out how you do you make it risk averse, right? And third is cash flows. If you make money, then you have a business, right? So all three things, we look at it very, very closely, right? For example, our contribution margin today is sitting at somewhere around, I think overall would be about 20 to 23%, right? That flows into an EBITDA margin of 14%. That flows into a profit after tax of 6-7%, right? Now, if I take this contribution margin from 22 to 26, all of my other elements exactly will flow to the bottom line, right? So 14 it will become 18, 6 will become 10, 11, and then you have a business that will always be valued very well. Second, and very, very important, is the team, right? This is what I tell most of my investors, right? Today, as an individual, there is no rock star in the team. Not a single rock star. You would not have heard of a single guy in this industry before they joined Awfis today, right? But as a team, I believe we can defeat any co-working player in the world, and we have done it. We've done it because it's entirely because of the team, right? And third and most important, one of the most important things is governance. I mean, you have to build a business, and that's why I explained to investors and also whoever are the entrepreneurs. First, keep integrity and governance above all. If you are wanting to build a business in today's India, 2025, governance and integrity has to be above board, right? Because it starts at the top. And if it seeps into the system, any kind of challenges, then it'll crush your company overnight. And these are the things which I think, Pratham, the markets have rewarded.
No, but sir, these are basics. These are fundamentals.
90% of the businesses don't follow these principles.
Yeah. Why do you think others don't?
So, when we are going public, I'll give you a very simple example. When we are going public, there was a bonus that was agreed by the investors of 5 crores, right? And one of the largest investors, I would not name it, he came and said, boss, when you are going public, it is new money coming in, right? It's the old guys who are benefiting, right? So we will not pay. So I gave up my 5 crore bonus in one shot to take the company public. Right? It's big money for me, right? My salary is in public domain. You can look at it. It's not a lot. And that moment was the defining moment where we had an anchor book of 24 spots. There are lines that are called. We had 62 applications for 24 lines, right? I mean, so that's where it fundamentally changed. Versus my competition is taking salaries which are extrememely high, right? I mean, yes, obviously I take a salary, right? I take a 2.6 crore salary, right? In full disclosure, for a 1,200 crore revenue business, and I feel it's fine. It's fair enough, right? There are competitors of mine which are taking 4 or 5 times that salary with lower revenues, right? So it's greed in my view, right? I mean, it's greed. The fundamental, I mean, you have, and this I explained to my teams also, you have been given a fiduciary responsibility by millions of investors, right, to do the right thing, right? It is your duty to ensure that your shareholders, your employees, your customers can get the right outcome from this, right?
In the entrepreneurship circle, IPO is sort of looked at as the be all and the end all.
Yeah.
So has that felt like that for you?
So 2 months before we went public, my team started telling me, "Yeah, you lost interest." I said, "Boss, I've not lost interest. It's done. It's a done deal, right? As in my mind, we have done it, right? Because we have the DRHP approval, we have all the investors lined up. Ho gaya, mera kaam khatam ho gaya, right?" So to us, Pratham, this never felt like for most people, they feel it's a destination. हमारे लिए एक milestone था. Or milestone था to do something which has never been done in the world before, right? And which was a lot of pride. But now the responsibility that comes along with it is way higher. As I said, I mean, my first biggest problem in the first 3 months was, how do I motivate people, right? मैं किसको क्या दिखाऊं जिसको मतलब इतना बड़ा outcome तो शायद कभी हमने भी नहीं सोचा था, right? तो अब आ गया है. What to do, right? So we started looking at other avenues. As I said, food and beverage is something we are looking at. We are establishing our own furniture business. We will do mobility, as I told you, we are doing. So everything that a workplace user requires, we will do it under one umbrella.
आपको अब क्या motivate कर रहा है? आपका next milestone क्या है?
So, Pratham, motivation is now to do adjacent, pieces in this and create them at a scale which has never been done in the country before, right? I mean, I was talking about design build with you, right? If you ask, as I said, you ask anybody about a design and build company, there is no brand in the country, right? We, in the last 3 years, almost crossing 450 odd crores of design and build revenue. In 2 years, we will be the largest in India, right? I mean, and have a brand along with it, right? So this is what keeps us going. Create outcomes which in industry nobody has been able to do it. Created at a scale where nobody's been able to do it, and change people's lives. I mean, we changed 100 people's lives. Today, I tell people, boss, the other pieces of businesses that we are starting, we are giving ownership back. We went public in May. November, we went again. We got another 4% of the company back into ESOP pool because obviously our original ESOP pool got exhausted. And here now are at least what keeps me going is to create things which are at a different scale, make change in people's lives. I mean, give them outcomes which they could not have imagined. When we went IPO, I mean, people came to me. They bought their parents' houses. Somebody could pay for their kids' education. Somebody sent their kid to the US, etc. A lot of pride in being able to change people's lives.
So now today, when you walk into one of your 250 centers, how does it feel when you enter?
Same. There's no difference.
So, like, do you feel कि हाँ ये कहाँ से शुरू किया था, कहाँ पर है? आप में क्या emotions दौड़ती हैं when you think of like the journey?
प्रथम ऐसे कोई emotion नहीं दौड़ती यार. I'm from a very humble background.
तब तो और भी सर.
And humility is the key to success. हमारे को कोई ऐसी feeling obviously you feel proud about it, right? What you've been able to do. I was driving this morning into the campus, and next building our logo is there, right? So I was like, wow. So
when you walk outside, look at the white building. There's a huge office logo.
World of cool offices.
वो चमकता है बहुत रात को.
So it's a lot of pride, but Pratham, I mean, lifestyle-wise, there is no change in my lifestyle. I mean, absolutely no change, right? And I, do not believe in buying real estate, especially on the residential side. So
you rent even today?
I rent even today. So we are a new age economy business. So you have to
live like that. गाड़ी भी Uber use
नहीं, गाड़ी तो Uber नहीं चलती है because you travel a lot, so Uber doesn't work. But yeah.
For when I moved to India, for first 3 years, I decided I will not buy a car. So first 1 year I used Uber, second year I used Blue Smart, and third year I actually leased a vehicle from a leasing service. Finally I bought a car. Then I realized it makes sense on the P&L to have a car, and it makes sense. I have 2 last questions. One is, what do you read? Right? How do you keep yourself updated? Dunya mein kya chal raha hai? I mean, you have clients from all over the world, all over different industries. How do you keep abreast of everything?
So, Pratham, मैंने last, I know it's getting recorded here, but मैं last 20 साल में सिर्फ 2 किताबें पढ़ी. One was The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. Game changing, boss. I mean, it's still relevant. And the second was Biography of Elon Musk by Ashley Vance. Right? There's only 2 books I read. Right? Today, to keep myself abreast, I think 2-3 things that I do. One, I read the newspaper very rigorously, both the Economic Times, Times of India, etc.
Physical.
I
गाड़ी में?
No, in the morning while I'm having breakfast. So that I read rigorously. I watch, a lot on YouTube in terms of podcasts, this, that, etc. Which I do typically when I'm traveling. I am on the road 4 days a week because of the multiple cities that we are in. So I watch these podcasts, and I don't have any specific podcasts. I watch whatever I feel interesting at that time. And then, I once a year, not once a year, multiple times in a year, we do these investor conferences, right? Where we meet investors and we meet customers. So I am very rigorous that in a single week, if I have to meet at least 4 to 5 customers, right? And I think if you meet your customers, they tell you, 90% of the solution, right? So I think at least my learning is very hands-on. I personally believe almost all books are similar nowadays, right? They all talk about the same thing. And I don't have the patience to read a full book, right? So I grab it in small snippets and I grab it hands-on. As an example, I make it a point to meet at least this year we would have met at least maybe 200 plus investors that are current investors or future, and that investor will tell you a lot. I mean, they'll give you a lot of feedback. Customers tell you a lot, which I can't read in a book. I mean, yeah. So
I know one more thing I've noticed about you. Whenever I've met you at these events all over the country, you have always been very curious. You're always talking to people, always trying to understand their business, their story, their side of things. And at your stage, to still be so curious That to me has always been a huge motivation to myself.
So, Pratham and I were at this conference called Griffin in Agra, right? And there was a guy there, 29-year-old guy, and he was running a company called Skyroot.
Yeah.
He is one of the only 5 companies in the world that is going to send a rocket in space.
From India.
Yeah, from India. And that is like fascinating. I was like, he was with ISRO. He's an aeronautical engineer, and I was like, wow, this is brilliance, right? And you would not, I would not know if I had not gone to that conference or had a chat with him, right? So I'm very, very fascinated by meeting these founders and what they are. So you learn good and bad things, by the way, right? You learn it both ways, and a lot of times what I learn is what not to do, right? And from some of the founders, but you get one of these gems, and this guy was like superbly smart, right? So anyway,
yeah, so many people we met that time. My eyes opened up to. There was someone who runs a very large old gold and silver jewelry business in Bombay. In
3,000 stores.
3,000 stores.
I mean, unbelievable. And he only sells jewelry which is below 30,000 rupees, and only in gold. I mean, I didn't even realize that this was a market.
What was the name? You remember? C se tha kuch to.
Chaitya or something. Chahat.
No, his name was Chahat. His company's name was also something like this. And it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and then there was another company called Elastic Run, right? And I had never heard of this company. Every single logistic platform in the country, delivery, all of this, Porter, Shipro, every single runs on them. I mean, it's like $1 billion revenue company, makes tons and tons of money. I was like, wow.
And the Infosys founder session.
Yeah, Mohandas Pai. I mean, amazing.
My favorite part in that session was when he spoke about their quarterly profit.
Yeah.
It was like some 20... he was asking everybody, what is your profit? I think our combined profits would be...
Crazy number.
27,000 crores profit quarterly. What scale, right? I mean, like when we hear that, we're like, we have a long way to go. IPO or no IPO.
No, but Pratham, I say it with all sincerity, the next 10 years, right? You would see India like it is, you can't even predict what will happen in India, right? I mean, you don't choose 2 things in your life. One is the parents, and second is the country that you're born in. You are so fortunate to be born at this time.
And to be 21 right now.
And to be 21 and to be building the next 10 years in India. It is going to be insane. And maximize this opportunity, because this time will never come back to any nation in the world.
Exciting baat hai. They're all 21. 20, 21, 22, right? Yeah, I got it right. Now, they have some decisions to make in life. They are studying right now. Some of them are studying and working simultaneously. The next 2-3 choices they have to make is कि यार कहाँ काम करें, किस तरीके का काम करें, अपना काम करें कि किसी कंपनी में काम करें, सेल्स करें, मार्केटिंग करें, फाइनेंस करें, क्या करें? How do they make these decisions? या क्या डिसीजन है, आप ये बता दो जाए.
See, so I mean, first, if you think about becoming an entrepreneur, okay, think of the why. When and how ka to answer koi nahi hota, because there is a lot of factors that go into it, right? But why is very important. Kyun banna chahte ho entrepreneur is the biggest question that you need to answer, because the journey is not easy and the failure rate is extremely high, right? So if you can find the answer to the why, then please do it. Most people will talk about building businesses of scale or copying models that are in the global. Pick up a fundamental problem in India and solve for it. I mean, there are so many problems in India, right? I mean, you can talk about like what we do in co-working, right? Finding a suitable workplace infrastructure is the problem statement, right? If I had followed the global model, so I would have also gone bankrupt, right? We had to do it in India. We had to do it in how to do it in India, when to do it in India. India taught us, right? I mean, the market evolved after COVID. Who had thought that we would be 20% of all commercial leasing, right? This year in India, 80 million square feet got leased. Almost 20 million was co-working. I mean, this industry didn't exist when I started in 2015, right? Today, 1 in every four leases is co-working, right? So how and when to मैं decide नहीं कर सकता था, but why was very important, and that's the only reason I will tell you, okay, you should do it. Second, I think, again, my view is very strong on it. Entrepreneurs have all kinds of views around it. One, education is very important. Without education, there are very few Mark Zuckerbergs in the world, right? I mean, agar wo aap ho, to then it's a different story, but 99.9% people are not like that, right? So please take your education very, very seriously, right? And there is no recipe, there is no shortcut to success. Please work extremely hard. All hard work does for you is it expands your opportunity of luck, because luck and hard work have to go hand in hand. I mean, I can tell you today, some days it is hard work, but many days it is only luck, right? I mean, when we went public, literally 3 months before that, we had done a fundraise of 800 crores at valuation of 800, right? 3 months after we were 2,500, 3 months after we were 6,200, right? So luck hai. Markets were great, right? Not that we did anything different, right? So, but hard work is very, very important, because there is no, and in India, and this is very small, but I mentioned it earlier also, integrity in governance. In the next generation of India is only going to be built on businesses which have a very strong governance and integrity.
Sure. And यदि अपने को why अभी नहीं मेरे को clear कि मेरे को क्यों entrepreneur बनना है, तो मेरे को भी job करनी पड़ेगी. How do I find the right place? What is right for the future? आपने बोला India के next 10 years is going to be interesting. How do I ride that wave?
You have to be motivated to work, and motivation cannot be money, right? Motivation has to be something that you find that you are very interested in, right? My 16-year-old daughter has a very clear idea what she wants to do. Although at 16, I had no clue what I wanted to do. Right? So as the current youth, you probably will have the answer of what you want to do. I mean, you would have clarity. You would know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. You have been fortunate enough, to be able to select. You've been fortunate enough to have programs like Master Union, which gives you this flexibility. I understood that most of you are working right now. This gives you online and offline capability to do it. I mean, there was never a time like this, right? That I would foresee that you would be sitting in a world-class college like Masters Union, right? With, somebody like Pratham, who's had the vision, as 2,500 students, highest placement in the country. So make the most of this opportunity, but do it what motivates you, because to Pratham, education motivates, right? To me, real estate motivates, right? To you, maybe marketing motivates. So do something which you enjoy, because you have to do it for a long time. There's no shortcuts, right? 10 years it took us to take the company public, right? And that too, we were lucky that we were able to do it, right? Many of people are never able to go take companies public. So you will have to keep doing it day in and day out. So you have to figure out what motivates you.
Sir, on that note, thank you so much
thank you
for coming and for sharing your story so candidly, so openly. I've never seen you this open. Generally, you're the one consuming information. Today, you were very generous with your story.
Hey, I mean, the youth, if they learn something out of it, even a couple of lessons, I think that's great. And good luck for your future. And thank you, brother, for inviting me over.
Thank you so much, sir.
The opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.